My take is the agile suits better when you need feedback to continue building on what you need to do. And a waterfall, to me, the waterfall works well with compliance, a project that is a lot of, you don't need feedback to adapt. You need to build it that way.
Welcome to the Tekitok podcast, where we embark on a journey through the ever-evolving realm of SAP and IT operations, automation, artificial intelligence, and cloud technologies. Whether you're an IT professional, a business leader, or simply curious about emerging technologies and industry insights, our episodes will be your compass in navigating this dynamic landscape with real-world experiences. Join us as we demystify complex concepts, explore innovative trends, and engage in stimulating dialogue with industry experts to empower you with insights that matter. The views expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not reflect the opinions of their respective companies. The producer of this Tekitok podcast assumes no responsibility for any public content, ideas, or recommendations shared.
Welcome back, Andrew. Andrew Yee, you know Andrew from all our other episodes of Rise. And thanks, Andrew, for coming back. Obviously, we didn't scare you enough to run away.
Thanks for having me.
Great. And Jordi, today I'm flipping seats with you, Jordi. Jordi's normally the one that's running the show here. But today, since he has a big project management background with large teams, I'm going to play the guy who asked the question. So, Jordi, thank you. Welcome back.
It's a pleasure to be here on this side of the podcast.
Okay. All right, you're ready. So today's topic, I want to talk about project management in the IT context, right? Because we're all IT. In tech and IT, we manage projects either on behalf of the customer or as a consulting firm or whatever. But talking about the trends and the changes, the issues of project management in the unstructured teams, because today, as we all know, teams are disparate. They are spread around the world. They work in different time zones. They may not be reporting to you. They may be reporting to 5 different managers, whatever, right? So priorities might be different as well. So in that structure, we're going to mostly debate today about what works, what doesn't work, or our experiences. So we're not going to be saying, hey, this is the way to go, or that. Hope that the audience will be able to say, yeah, that works for me, that didn't work for me, and maybe share some experience too. All right, so you guys have all been around. You've seen Project Waterfall, and now you have seen Project Agile. What flavors have you seen, Andrew? That maybe in between, anything funky, different? I'm not trying to launch a rocket to the moon, but let's say IT SAP projects.
Yeah, obviously, I think if we look back in history, those of us who started earlier got more familiar with waterfall as an approach in how to do things. I think the large projects we did in the past were predominantly waterfall, and then I think just after we finished that sort of transition into large projects, we went into smaller projects, and I think that's where we started to see an insertion of agile approach. And then after that got that flavor, then I think we started to see large projects now try to adopt agile. So the fundamentals of making any methodology work, I think, is really the experience that people are bringing into it, and making sure that everyone is able to follow it, especially if you look at something like Agile. It's a little bit more education that's required behind it, I think, in order to get everyone aligned and how to use it, more than, let's say, the traditional waterfall. I think waterfall allows people to rely on the methodology that maybe the project manager is doing, but the steps in Scrum, if you haven't done it before in Agile, then maybe that's something that companies need to think about how to educate everyone to get them on board. But yeah, it's interesting that people are trying different things. Even though the tool is relatively the same, as we know, we're trying different ways to implement functions, features, upgrades, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So Jordi, I think you also been through a lot of both types of project, right? So I think if you could reflect back like those waterfall projects or those agile large development projects, what would you say clearly why you would go one way or another?
So it's interesting because I think both are just methodologies, right? Those are methodologies. I would go for traditional waterfall if there is very little unknowns in the project. It's clear what needs to be done. There is a lot of compliance. The team is mature. They know what to do. Then as A, B, C want to do it this way, and this will be done at that point, 3 months, 6 months down the road. Versus an agile that it's a project where you need more experimentation, getting results, and those results will drive what the project is and the final deliverable. So if you're not really clear what the final deliverable is, you need a lot of cycles to figure that out. And that fits better in an agile, because in an agile, you build something, get the feedback, build the next version of it, get the feedback, and the team is learning. They don't know. They don't have a clear vision or view of what the final product, the final result is, versus somebody at the top of the organization say, oh yeah, the final is very clear. You need to be an SAP S/4HANA. Like, well, there's a lot of unknowns there. So the team needs to learn through the project, and that in an agile way works better than, hey, we're going to spend 3 months planning, 3 months building, 3 months testing, and then we're live. The team, when they do the planning, they don't have the time to spend hands-on and all that stuff. So to me, both have a place. It depends on the scope, and certainly whether it's known and or unknown, the result, and whether we need customer feedback and we need it, those iterations to go through and learn through the process.
So that's interesting, because as you explaining that, I don't know. I mean, a lot of young people in the starting out in IT career right now, they're joining teams. They may be out of college. Since you have a bit of academia, Jordi, what do you see they are teaching these young, eager young minds when they graduate from, let's say, a 4-year IT, engineering? What are they learning as project management? What do they teach in schools nowadays? Because, I would prefer, if I'm going to do agile, that I would have a team, some new, recruits and some more mature, but they all kind of talking the same lingo. But I don't know if they teach them in school. What do they teach them in school now?
Right. So they're both. But I think more than that, the difference on what is today being taught in school and what I learned when I went to school, I don't know how many years
ago. It was a long time ago. Look at it.
Right. Is now there is more teamwork involved. And when I went to school, it was just me. And all the assignments, it was me. And the study, it was me. And everything was just me. I need to learn. And I'm competing with the rest of the class. Versus now, there is, from the beginning, there is more team collaboration, and we're trying to help students to really work together and learn by diversified opinions. And to me, that's the core of a Scrum, that you bring different people with different skills, different opinions. Somebody is new, somebody is an expert, and together they learn and figure out. And that's what we're trying to build. So, and there are some schools out there that you stay with a team for most of your higher ed years, and you stay with the same people and the same team. So maybe when you finish your college, you actually stay with the same team and go to work for a company altogether, because you've been working together for a long time on multiple projects.
That sounds like the IDF, Israeli Defense Force. They start a lot of security companies. That's what they come from. The military, they were in the same team. They come out, they start a startup, and they work together. It's just that they know each other, and that's the Barcelona soccer team. They know each other since they are kids. They play together, so it's the same concept. So, Andrew, I had an interesting question for you related to the movement from more used to be projects run traditional waterfall, now kind of see more and more Scrum Agile type projects. Do you think, based on our understanding, okay, you have a very well-defined, understood problem you're solving, there's a very well-defined way to get there. Like a traditional SAP implementation, there used to be, the implementation guide, right? IMG, and you're gonna do this module. You go in here and you configure this and configure this. You load the data, you test, and you go live. So that used to be that way, and now it's like completely the other way. There's like 50 modules and all the different things that could happen or could experiment. Do you see that? The question I have is it we taking on Agile because things are just a lot more fuzzy nowadays compared to the old days where it was very kind of like well-defined?
I mean, I'm not sure. I agree that everything was so well defined in the old days. Like, if I go back to the old days, when I started doing HR configuration for SAP payroll and time management, there wasn't even an IMG. Okay, so you're going through tables and trying to figure out and configure that way. So they hadn't actually even defined it. So I don't think it was actually more clear back then. So I think I understand what you're saying about the ability to work together as teams to try to work things out that are a little bit more nebulous. I can agree that there's the methodology of using Agile can help you do that. I would counter to say that the issues that I see around whether it's, I guess we could say, any methodology, is if things are already defined for you. You have a certain amount of time you need to get something done. There's a certain amount of money that's being earmarked for you to do it. And by the way, you need to work with these groups of people. So it really doesn't, I guess we could say it doesn't matter if it's waterfall or agile. It's really setting up this team to really not be able to leverage waterfall, or actually even their abilities to meet this type of thing. And I see a lot of challenges of trying to, like, I mean, if you look at a waterfall from a management perspective, it's this month, you're month 4, I know where you are. But if we're month 4 into an agile project that is a little bit uncertain and nebulous, and you haven't defined anything, and you've spent a quarter of your budget, but you still don't know, there's people that you need to answer to that are not going to be sitting very comfortably. So they like to be able to see the progress. So then I see that then people, what they end up doing in an agile approach is they try to meet the reporting needs by completing certain sprints that may not lead to anything. They create tickets that shows that they're progressing tickets to be completed for the sake of completing them, so that we can then appease the sort of the reporting aspect of making sure that you're on time and on your budget. So I see that there's challenges there. If you're going to go agile, I think everybody needs to accept, from management down to everyone needs to understand what it means. Because if you just have the implementation doing a methodology, but that at the same time they're sort of the old traditional, I need to see results, I see that there's a conflict there. It's not going to make it easy. So
and we see that I've seen that in the waterfall, that, hey, how many projects run over budget? They run over time because it doesn't take a year, it takes 2 years. It doesn't take 1 million, it takes 2 million. It doesn't take 10 people, it takes 20 people. Because somebody decides, hey, this is what you need to do in this amount of time, this is the number of people. Okay, something is wrong there, and they need to figure out. So somehow companies have already accepted that it's an agile, that at some time in the project, in a waterfall project, they're going to be running out of time. They're going to be running out of money. They need to change the scope. They need to make some changes to really deliver something. And that has been happening. It's just that with the Agile, you have visibility of that at the very beginning, and not 3 quarters in the project. I think of when I try to explain Agile versus Waterfall, to me, Agile is you build a house 1 room at a time. And you live in the house from the day that you have one room. Yeah, you may not have a kitchen. It doesn't matter. You live in one room. Is that painful? Yes. Now you're going to add another room. And maybe you decide that room to be the kitchen. Or maybe based on what you learned, you don't want that to be a kitchen and you want that to be a bathroom. Versus waterfall is, I need to have foundation, period. 2 months on the foundation, I'm going to put the framing. 2 months after the framing, I'm going to put the roof. Guess what? 6 months and you don't have a place to live. That is
sure. Judging on that, sorry to interrupt, but judging on that analogy, I like that because I talk about SAP projects as building a house as well. So in that thing, 6 months later, you have the frame and you decide I wanted a 6-bedroom house, but you only have a 4 because you don't have the room. So then you're then gonna have to do a change request and then build an addition or build another flat.
You need to change the basements. Now you need to change the basement.
I get that, but I like to bring in the fact with Agile. Once you're living in the one room and you don't build the foundation and you can't have any plumbing because you can't flush your toilets and you have the outhouse in the back, you're still talking about being able to how many windows you want and putting the color of the paint. But the thing is, you don't have a foundation to dig your basement. You don't have the plumbing. You have no electrical, or you at least have electrical in one room, and then the power box doesn't get connected anywhere. Exactly. So I see that as a problem in Agile, that those parties and they don't work together.
I am sure you know the concept of refactoring, right? So in Agile, you need to refactor all the time, all your code, everything you're building. The testing is like, oh, we just build this based on some assumptions. Now we learned that was not right. Now we need to adapt. So we need to refactor the code and so on. And that is something that Agile incorporates. And I always like to let the team figure that out instead of somebody putting all the project management controls and so many statuses and so on. The team is saying, let me work. Let me figure this out.
Yeah, I think you guys are both sharing interesting thing. I'm going to add to this analogy, right? So yes, it's great if you build a house, you have a project, traditional waterfall, you're going to end up with a house. Like if I'm a builder, if I'm going to sell 1,000 house and it's all going to look like this, that's great because I don't need to figure anything out. I already figured out. I need all these components, all these parts. I'm going to do it in this order. I hire these people. I'm going to build a house. They're going to look like that, right? Nowadays, people don't want that. They're like, hey, if I can afford it, I want my own house to be of character. I'm going to build a nice, cool room like this and a color like that. I'm not going to be like a home association locked down to some color scheme. So then I'm going to do Agile because my house can be nice, unique, and have some artistic design. But now I have to go to this new economy of what I think today happens. You guys agree or not? When you go and build this house, you're not going to build from what the builder used to do. Build everything by buying bulk. All the parts are the same, so you keep the low cost. Now you're building by saying, hey, I like that kitchen, that little sink. I'm going to buy that one off Amazon. And I'm going to plug in, I like that little, faucet from there that looks stainless steel. That's cool. I'm going to buy that one. So now the economy is more plug and play. So if you can take this analogy, it's easier to say, oh, I don't have the right stuff. I'm going to buy it and plug it in. As in the old days, you couldn't do that and keep the price low. But now there's competitive on buying from like Amazon or, Home Depot online or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that in today's project, there's a lot of things that you don't have to build. You can buy tools. You can buy third-party packages, add-ons. So if I don't have to build this thing, then I can keep the risk relatively contained by using Agile, saying I'm going to move this. I don't need to figure that one out, right? It doesn't have to be defined because I can plug in and buy a third party for that, and I can do this. So it's gone from that to the old days where we used to be required to build everything, almost build everything, right? You go into a project, you're going to set up the server, you're going to, build a database, you're going to load the data. Nowadays, you're like, hey, I'm going to cloud, I'm going to spin something up. It's ready, right? I don't need to figure that one out. So there's a lot of plug and playing and there's a lot of different players, which introduce different problems with, I would say, communication, and maybe that's why it gives rise to the tools like Andrew. You talk about Jira as well, one of the project management tool. The other one is the ADO, Azure DevOps. I think that these tools came about because this kind of thing, plug and play. I need somebody with this skill, work on this, and this tool need to manage these disparate type things that are happening. What do you see Jira has done to this kind of project management?
Yeah, I mean, we could debate. It's this interesting debate on perspectives of how which way we want things. We think which way should go, and I do like there's parts of Jira that are good. I think I get the idea of being able to manage it to separate teams as you mentioned, and to be able to isolate it. I think that what the reality I think that has happened is we have a lot of people who, let's say, are joining projects who are new, may not have done implementations before, don't have that much experience, but either a Scrum Master or they've taken a little bit of background in Jira, and then they think that they can run a complicated SAP project or any type of project. And I think that's where it gives people a little bit of a false sense of security of being able to rely on the tool and also let's say a methodology to complete certain things. And I think we can get it's very easy to get mired in all the progress of how many tickets are being completed in this in Jira when you, especially if you don't know what the dependencies are, you don't know how it's all related, you don't know how the project is actually progressing, because you're just basically we basically turn to to become a sort of task focus, right? We go into Jira, it masters our day, we make sure that things are getting done, we just progress them, but actually the overall objective of the deliverable we are starting to lose sight of very easily because we're in the details of it. But I mean that could be said by any methodology. I'm just saying that some of a thing where I see now with Jira is people rely on it without actually knowing what's really objective.
So I think you're saying tools does not replace for real expertise and experience, right? You cannot put a bunch of guys together, have a great tool, and no more expert in there, because the project won't move anywhere. So I think that's kind of the tone here. So I think we had a good debate here. I don't know, Jordi, but I maybe I can summarize. The fact is, regardless of what methodology you need good people. you need a well-defined process, and you need some kind of tooling to go along with that, right? I mean, that's the success is regardless what budget and timeline, everybody's going to try and squeeze you anyway, right? That doesn't change.
And I think it's realization that if you have a mature team that they know what they need to do, the project will take less time. If your team doesn't know, they're going to have to learn through the project, and the project is going to take longer, regardless of the methodology. It's just they will have to figure that out. But if somebody decides this is how long it's going to take and doesn't look at, do you have the expertise to do that? It's like assuming that everybody knows. Well, there's a ton of people that may not be that expert, and they need to figure that out. And I think when you empower the teams to figure out, they do figure out, and they provide good solutions.
So let me ask another question from both of you right now. Is the fact that I see traditionally there's been a relationship of people thinking Agile is for DevOps, new kind of engineer guys writing code, and they want to move fast and put some prototype. But since then you see Agile being used across the board for all kinds of teams. I have some internal, opinions about it, but I like to hear from you, that misconception and why that's the case. Or is it you think Agile is better for, this kind of unstructured, not well-known, project, and maybe Waterfall is better for like a more structured team that does deliver the same thing over and over, and like maybe customer service or something. I don't know. What's your take on this?
My take is the Agile suits better when you need feedback to continue building on what you need to do. And a waterfall, to me, the waterfall works well with compliance, a project that is a lot of, you don't need feedback to adapt. You need to build it that way. And it's very well known what the final product is going to be, the final solution, whatever it is. And Agile is more a iterative approach of learning and maturing your deliverable. That if we try to work for a year on building something, and after a year we show it to the customer, wow, that is so late to get any feedback. You'd rather build something, just a mock-up, build a version 1, version 0.1, whatever that is, get the feedback, and start doing that. So to me, the Agile is more, you're involving your customers, internal customers, users, on building those solutions. And when they see it, they can provide better feedback. But if you want them to provide feedback and they don't see what it is, you only get 10% of it. You only get a little bit. And only valuable feedback is when they actually use it. When they use it is when they know, oh, by the way, but we always do this, and now I can do it, or we miss this stuff, and they add always on top of it. And that's why early in the process, the better, and that suits better in an Agile way.
Andrew,
okay, so how about this? I'm going to cop out and go with the hybrid approach, and I'm going to take the middle ground for both, and go with the best of both worlds and bring them together. So I think I agree with you. You need to do more rapid prototypes, get things and get more feedback on a regular basis. I agree with that. I like Waterfall to be able to use that defined, structured process to manage top level sponsors and stakeholders. It gives them a lot more confidence and clarity, because that's all you're not going to be able to convince them to go on the voyage of discovery with you, because they're not going to spend money and feel satisfied unless they have some definitive. So I'll use the waterfall to help with that, and then I'll take the working independently from the waterfall, and then trim off some of the administrative parts of daily scrums, and change that to more like twice a week sort of stand-ups rather than the daily. So I'll trim off the administrative fat of that, and then take a little bit of this, and then take the middle ground.
You just described you on that.
It wasn't your question.
Andrew, you just described my scenario, right? So I mean, at IT-Conductor, we actually structured a little bit similar hybrid, because first of all, we all said, okay, we're going to do Agile. After a couple of years of not, really following anything specifically, because when you do something as a startup, you're like, oh, let's just get something going, right? But now we have clearly defined teams like R&D teams, and you have marketing, you have support. Now we find, support doesn't really go well with Agile, because support, you get tickets, you're doing something. What does Agile got to do with it, right? So why don't we do regular project management support? But we took the middle ground. We said, okay, we're gonna do Agile for across the board, but we're gonna give support a little more ability to explore. So that means, like, for instance, if a customer opens a ticket and they have a question on something, and then maybe that requires you to do some research and experimentation to say, we don't have it right now, but I think we can probably do that. But let me, prototype this and show it to you. So there's a open up of support to do more than just regular, answering ticket and solving the real problem right there. There's a little more kind of development work or research, exploration work. And so we kind of like took the hybrid approach and say, oh, yes, we'll do support with Agile, but we are flex to say there are standard things we do every time. We have regular customer meetings, we have regular support things we review, health check, but then there are other portions where we can go off and explore things and develop things and innovate, right? So that you basically, it's a bit of both. I'm not sticking to anything like that. And so for us, a small team kind of worked well, that approach. So that's because at the end of the day, the tool comes part of it. We struggle a long time for tool, because you can have the good people, process, and idea, but if the tool doesn't support you, for instance, what I'm saying is, like, if you are basis people cannot relate to DevOps. I'm going to tell you that right away. Try to tell SAP technical basis guy, DevOps, they're not going to write code like the traditional DevOps, and right? So you try to do automation, whatever. So in the end, there's a hybrid of that where there is a guy in the basis team that does automation work. So he might need to develop code. He needs to check in using CI/CD, integration and pipeline and do all testing and dev branch, but that's still needed. And so I think, to me, the evolution is that you need the project team, but you need the tool now to not only manage the stories and tasks and deliverables, but also be able to integrate into like the pipeline of what we call the future of work. Is more automation, more intelligent, right? That's kind of my experience. I don't know, you guys have some input there.
So I think we loaded a question and set up Jordi to not be able to answer it, and then we cherry picked the things we like from each methodology to do that answer.
Yeah, look, I think that is the either in waterfall or agile or production support. Actually, I think production support are like a daily sprint, because every day they need to decide what is the top priority for that day and what they're going to do. And that's it. And they finish the day, and the day after, they need to say, okay, what is the priority for today? Versus in traditional Scrum, they work more in a 2-week or 3-week cycle. And this is what we want to focus in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks and so on. So it's just different stuff. I really like to get all the administrative work out of the team.
Yeah.
Get them solve problems and build solutions, and just get all that stuff out of them, because they don't like it, and it just takes so much time from them. Let them time to code, time to configure, to test, and do what they're good at. And I think the role of a project manager with Scrums is actually connecting different Scrums, because the Scrum, I'm not sure how that works. I've never seen that working, but somebody has to be the gatekeeper of, okay, what are the priorities of this team? What are the priorities of that team? And have we tagged that team there? We need to tag that team. And that team will figure out when that needs to be done, and etc. There's always challenges, but use the project manager as the gatekeeper of the different teams working and providing high-level risk and so on how things are evolving. And therefore, the teams are going to be just doing their stuff. That's what they're good at.
You remind me of a joke when I first started in a very large company. They take Agile, and I come from very traditional. Here's the waterfall. I went in there and they start talking about the PO and the PM. I'm like, hey, I'm already here. Why you need a purchase order? and then they're talking about PM. Like, don't you have a project manager? No. I'm talking about product owner and a product manager. I'm like, oh, product. Okay. Product manager, not project manager. It's a Scrum Master. So there's this funny thing about that, right? So I think one of the thing about project management at the end of the day, I think to me is like this: if you are going to create something and sustain for a long time, because that's the whole point, right? You create and you support where there's. I do like the fact that we're in a newer generation where there's more sensitivity to work-life balance. That you work in, yes, your company is great, but I don't like it when companies say, oh, I have a great family here. No, your company is not your family, right? They're the employer, they work, they're not your family. You still go home to your family. So don't talk like family like that. So the balance I see is this: in a agile way, the actual support team in traditional way, they just do the tickets. Now we actually let them have a proper we do the sprint review where we see deliveries, and then we actually have retro where they can actually have feedback and talk about what worked, what didn't work. We didn't have this opportunity before when we do the other traditional method. In this new agile way, I kind of like, you can you can talk it out, and so we can hear, hey, you're overloading me with all the story points, and so in a certain way, I do appreciate that to be more kind of balanced, because at the end of the day, I want them to go home to their family and be happy, and not like, my work family. There's no such thing as work family. Come on.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's actually let the team learn. Let the team learn and work together, versus somebody at the top is like, I know better than anybody else, and this is what you need to do, and you just need to get it done. And if you're not doing it in my timelines, it's because you're a slacker. No, that's most of the people trying to do the best job they can. Let them figure out, and I think a good teams figure that out.
Okay, you just described Andrew. I think he cracks the whip now. Sorry.
yeah. No, you're describing what I am totally used to after the 20, 30, 25 years of SAP implementations. It's exactly that. Repressing your feelings in the office, never talking about that, not sharing what could go wrong. Just internalize it and go home and stew on it.
Okay, so I think we had a session about, just can you sit down on the couch and tell me your story? How many points was that story, huh?
Yeah. That's all. But I think a lot of new age stuff for me.
yeah, I know. All these like guys talking about their feelings, what's going on. But I think in wrapping up, this has been a very fun discussion, because we don't get into technical stuff, but project management is so important. And the reason I actually wanted this topic in the episode, I didn't tell anybody first, but it's because we work with a lot of customers, and there's a frustration that we use Agile, right? We do this, and then we try to follow up and do the right thing, but the customer just doesn't respond. Then they ask for something, they open a ticket, and then you try to do, and you ask them for information, and after a while, you're feeling like there's a complete lack of project management on that side. I'm not talking bad about anybody, but my experience has been like, what's going on lately? Seems like there's a lack of project management. There's nobody owning this stuff, and they're looking everything like, oh, I open a ticket, and then, just a ticket. It doesn't relate to anything. No, that ticket has dependency on other things. Where's the project manager in this to make sure that this thing gets, delivered? So I don't really care if it's project manager, scrum master. At some point, I feel like we need to get back to good communication as either a distributed team or multi-vendor team, multi-party, and actually conduct business like, oh, there's a requirement, there's some work, there's something for you to test and check out, provide feedback, and we can improve it. But if it's just us doing the work and nobody's managing anything on that side, I feel like it's going into a black hole. So that's my experience. I'm kind of airing now.
Yeah. I think I would circle back to what Jordi said about school, where we were before. It was working in isolation. It's our work, and it's all about us trying to complete something. And I think one of the things that, although the modern day is obviously more working with teams and larger groups, and I think one of the things that in that transition that has been lost is a little bit of accountability and responsibility. When you're working with a team, it's very easy to say it's the entire team that is responsible for something, so that at the end of the day, no one's actually accountable. No one really individually is responsible. So in that particular case, I think it can be easy to hide behind that. And then in your case, what you're saying is, no one's responding to me. Well, the team is just going to this distribution list, and then it's just sitting there. No one person's going to stick their head out to say something. And I think what we have to go back to is these ideas of I think it's the mix between old and new. We need to still bring back some of those sort of key ways of working and making sure people are still accountable together and responsible. Now, we could say that you could have a racy and explain out who's doing what, but I think it's very easy to fall into that trap when you have a large group of people sometimes, where no one really wants to step up and be accountable for it.
Great summary.
I love it. By the way, we could go a long conversation on that, on what is a team and how a team. If you look at in sports, in soccer, for instance, they adapt all the time based on the game. That is the conditions, right? So in IT, that is based on the project, on where they are in the project. They need to adapt exactly what they need to do and how to help each other. There are some projects where there is more testing involved, so the developers will need to get more involved in that. some other projects, they're lacking a little bit of resource somewhere. They need to help on that. So I think as looking at the sports and how the team dynamics is doing and how they help each other and in a team versus you play tennis and hey, it's just you. So if you fail, you fail, right? And take the accountability in the team. And if there is a request coming to the team and nobody's responding, well, it is the team. And in some, I read somewhere that a good practice is let the team interview a new person coming into that team, whether the team is going to feel right, that this is the right person to work with. And I think that's awesome. And typically, most of the companies, the manager is the one who decides that, and the team doesn't get involved. And then the team gets dumped this person that the manager thought it was great. And it's like, this person doesn't fit with us.
I echo your sentiment, Jordi, but I have to laugh a little bit because, not because of that, but it reminds me of the fact that except it's great to include your team in the interview process so they feel like inclusive, but the problem is HR goes, you can't ask them these questions. And you know what, the more people you have involved, so what my actual experience is that, you know, an actual education institution hires people, but HR tells them like all the things they cannot ask. So they only can ask these standard 5 questions. They can't so to get a technical person in an interview and ask about, you know, things so that, you know, this person can do the job. No, you can't ask those. It has to fall within. So we've gone to a place where legal and HR has taken over everything. So the technical team is sitting there. I'm like, what am I going to be here for? Yeah, I mean, I can't even ask these questions.
Some companies, the decision is not the hiring manager who decides whether the person is joining or not. Is a panel, and that panel may be, you know, other peers and people that want to work with them and etc., and not just the manager. So I'm trying to think that let the people that are going to work with that person to influence or decide whether is the right person or not, and not just the manager. That in many companies is the manager who decides. And I think in the spirit of the team, maybe the team.
I'm going to wrap up with one final thought that I'm going to ask Andrew, because he did mention this before, and I cannot let it go without saying that regardless of what methodology you use, what kind of tool or project, the most important thing is the project manager or the Scrum has to have that knowledge about what they're managing. Right? You can explain better, Andrew, but like this is the core success. If you add somebody that is clueless about what they're actually managing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you get the leverage of the experience of someone who's done many things before, where they can actually, as we've talked about, it's not so cut and dry to pick one one approach, one size fits all. Sometimes you need to adapt, you need to change, you need to adjust the methodology. As a methodology is a tool set, right? So you want to pick your tools that's going to help suit the situation or the customer or whatever situation you're in. So yeah, you need to have the experience from, especially on an SAP side, the people who are experienced within multiple projects. You know, you need that experience. And I think nowadays with where we're heading, and maybe everyone calling themselves a project manager, everyone is a Scrum Master, but actually, you know, it definitely needs to include experience of having done it before. So I think if you're going to build your house and build your dream house, you don't want a builder doing it for the first time, right? You want to get someone who's going to be good, solid. They don't care how you want them to work, because you know their actual work at the end of the day is going to be good, right? So
I'm going to wrap up because we agree on all of this, right, Jordi? You cannot disagree here. Come on, we need to agree. So, you know.
Have I been disagreeing?
It's been a very good, healthy debate.
No, I don't disagree at all.
That's good.
By the way.
All right. Thank you both of you for your time, experience, of course, managing all the big, I mean, you can say that you manage multi-million-dollar projects. We've been around, and I think it's been healthy discussion. Hopefully, people didn't get bored by us talking about all these Scrum and Waterfall, and there's somebody going out and taking Waterfall picture and say, hey, I know how to project manage. Okay, until next time on Tekitok. Once again, this is on project management. See you on the next episode. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Cheers.
All right. All right.